I'm Marc Silber. I'm in Carmel, California. And I want to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by our friends at Bay Photo. Now, if you've read my book, Advancing Your Photography, you know that I recommend to share your work. You've got to make prints. You've got to put your photos in books, cards. Do something physical. Don't just leave it on your computer. And Bay Photo will help you with all those things. They make prints, they mat them, they frame them, they do all sorts of custom things and cool things. You can make books with them, you can make cards. It's really, really important to get your work out into the physical world where people can see it, and Bay Photo will help you with it. And you're going to get a 25% discount as a new customer. Jared will put the link on there. You can save dough on your first order. It's good for you, it's good for them, and it's good for us. Okay, guys, so our guest today, the one and only Bob Holmes. You know that he's a National Geographic photographer. He's won Travel Photographer of the Year award 5 times. He's a nice guy most of the time. And he is an excellent, incredible teacher. That's why we have him back so many times. And we've got his course, which you guys should check out, and we'll put a link to it. Joining us also is his partner, Andrea Johnson. She is a photographer, director. She specializes in wine, agriculture, and adventure travel. And here they are. Welcome, you guys, all the way from Oregon. So good to have you once again with us.
Thanks, Mark. Always good to be here, wherever it's from.
Wherever it's from. Well, good. So that's your photograph in the background, right, Andrea?
Oregon wine country in Penarash, one of my favorite aerials.
That's fantastic. So we're kind of winging it, you guys, just so everybody knows, and we're on being completely transparent. What we're really talking about is what it's like to be out, in the world, and it doesn't have to be this particular assignment, but you guys work together a lot, like on your workshops and travel photography and that sort of thing. What are some of the challenges you've had to overcome just being out and about and working together and getting things done?
Well, yeah, the biggest challenge is working together.
It always is, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. The problem I have is that, I spent 40 years or more as a documentary photographer, editorial photographer, shooting for magazines, and it is a very solitary profession.
Yes.
Yeah, you're on your own for months on end sometimes, and you're in complete control of what you do. And as soon as you have to work with someone else, it's very, very difficult. The hardest thing for me, I guess, is working in film and video, which is what we do now. And that is it's a very collaborative medium.
It is.
You have sound people, camera people, directors, and I find that really hard. I don't take direction well.
Bob, could you stand over to the right a little bit more? See, he's taking my direction. That's what happens when you direct Bob. That looks good, Bob. I think that's a better shot. So, Andrea, what do you think about this arrangement? What are some of the challenges you've had to overcome?
I think anytime you have to talk through a process of your objection instead of just intuitively responding to it, it's more difficult, but yeah. It also makes the actual end result better because you're thinking through what you're actually doing instead of just doing it. And the challenges can also be the best components because we each have our own unique vision and way of seeing things. And if we are in harmony, we could maximize those differences and each bring something stronger to the table. So for instance, I love doing these big sweeping aerial shoots and the wide landscapes and very particular details that I'll have the patients to wait on for a long period of time. Whereas Bob is very prolific and great with all different types of concepts. And so if we can give each other the space to each do what we're best at, then it comes together in a project that I think is stronger than either one of us would individually do. But we're still always fighting. If there's an epic rainbow or an amazing lighting scenario or whatever it may be, we both want to get in there. And maybe sometimes that helps in a healthy competition keep us on our toes.
Yeah, I guess so. I know I remember talking to you guys about this because you're both, you're both directors, right? So how do you split those hats up? Do you take turns?
No, she doesn't let me.
So that handles it right there. So
yeah, that's the fundamental problem of working together.
You don't like to direct.
She just tells me what to do.
There you go.
I expect to do it. Well, screw that.
Okay, Bob's happy about that arrangement. So, how do you split it up? Are you guys just fighting out in the field all the time, or do you have some kind of working arrangement that makes it work out?
Ideally, it should be.
We're getting the truth here.
I'm coordinating usually with the client to get the jobs and to give the creative brief and the vision of what it should look like. And then Bob is director of photography on location to be in control of how to best accomplish that. So when we're actually shooting, I'll oversee the concept, but Bob is first camera and I'll back it up.
This shoulder is higher than this one.
Bob, stay on topic.
Bob's having fun today. Well, this is, it is, listen, you guys out there listening in TV land, this is the thing. I mean, these are the realities of working out, on a project. And it's true. I know, here's the funny thing for me. I've been in situations where I'm being shot, as the subject, and there's a director, and I really want to direct the director to shoot me how I want to be shot. But that's not what I should be doing. It's their job. You have to relinquish your control during that time and let them get on with it, right? So there is that kind of back and forth. I want to let you go ahead.
I've been very fortunate in that I've been given almost complete freedom, even with editorial shoots. I spent years shooting for Departures magazine, and I would just get a brief to go and shoot a place, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of work with Islands magazine as well, when it was still being published. Obviously, when it was still being published.
When it was still being published.
Yeah, I often went out before the writer, and I did research for the writer and gave the writer tips, which I think is fairly unusual. Normally, it's the writer that gives the brief to the photographer. But I found myself on a few occasions going to a place before the writer and then letting the writer know what they should look for and giving them contact information. So I've had a very fortunate career in that way.
Yeah.
On some levels it's fortunate, but on others it makes it very difficult when that kind of freedom disappears.
Yeah. Were you guys both on your most recent trip to Cuba?
Yes. Yeah, one of the things that we're doing, travel photography as a profession has more or less died. There used to be, there were never a lot of magazines in the States, but there was a fair number of Islands, Travel Holiday, some private magazines. There's still Virtuoso. I think it's called Virtuoso, isn't it? Virtuoso Life. There are a few magazines. Sunset magazine used to do a lot of West Coast travel. I did a lot of work with Sunset.
Really? Okay.
A lot. I was in almost every issue of Sunset at one period, doing local stories, which was great because I could take my kids. I had 2 young kids when I was shooting for them, and they would go with me, and I'd use them as models. In fact, one of the most amusing incidents, I did a story on inland beaches in Central California, and there's one in Lodi, Lodi have a small lake, and there's a sort of a little beach by it.
I never would
And
have guessed that.
I took, yeah, it's the last place you'd expect to find a beach. And it's a very popular beach because it's in the middle of California and it's hot. And so people like to go to the water. And it is a real beach. And I took my two girls who were then, I think about 10 and 12, and a friend of theirs. And they were wearing bikinis and I got them running up and down the beach. And someone called the cops on me.
No.
This dirty old man photographing young girls running up and down the beach.
And they're your daughters.
Yeah, they're my daughters.
Oh, that's wild.
But it's, I guess I should be pleased that people were that concerned. But you have to be very careful these days.
You do. Yeah, one of the incidents.
Sunset Magazine.
But I think,
and that whole world now, it collapsed really after September the 11th, 2001. Because that killed, it just about killed international travel. And with that, all the advertising disappeared for international travel. So the magazines could no longer afford to keep publication. Because magazines are not about the editorial content, they're about advertisers.
Absolutely.
If a magazine doesn't get advertisers, it can no longer exist. The editorial content is very much secondary. We'd like to think it's of the utmost importance, but it really isn't. It has to be good to keep people's attention and keep them wanting to see it. And the photography is very important in that, but it still comes down to advertisers. As soon as international advertising stopped, the magazine started to collapse and become very, very thin.
Yes.
What was once a fat magazine would suddenly become a very slim magazine, and that means fewer assignments. And with that, I remember in 2002, I think it was, we did the first book that was shot entirely on digital cameras, and that was Day in the Life of Africa, which we shot on the Olympus E20,
yes,
which was a top-of-the-line 5-megapixel camera.
A big whopping 5 megapixels.
Yeah, there's a Nikon D1X, which I think was only about a 3-megapixel, surprisingly. But the E20 at 5-megapixel was revolutionary. But as soon as digital photography became available to the masses, it killed stock photography. And half of my income from travel was from selling stock. Now everybody's a photographer. Every travel writer, just about, you see, advertises themselves as writer stroke photographer. So literally everybody's a photographer now. And iPhones are so amazing that it's just destroyed that market. So the one area where we're still able to do something that we love and also share everything with other people is by teaching workshops. And that is, we both find that very satisfying. We take people to places that we love going to, of which Cuba is one.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're doing a workshop in Cuba in December, along with a very close friend of mine, who I've known for almost 40 years, Chris Baker, who's National Geographic's Cuba expert. He's written 3 books of National Geographic on Cuba. So he is, he's going to be with us, and he knows more about Cuba than anyone. I think he's been to Cuba over 200 times now.
Wow.
So something that we're passionate about, and we continue to do. We're also going to Oaxaca at the end of October, all being well. And that is something we continue to do, which is not only enables us to continue our own personal travel photography, but introduce other people to the world that we've lived in, that I've lived in for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
And if I can jump in too,
sure, please.
Zoom, I really came into being a full-time freelancer right after September 11th. I'd make the jump 6 months before that. So it's never been an ideal time for me with travel photography. I've found that over the last 15 years, you really have to create your own projects and your own concepts, and then find lots of different markets and venues to be able to grow that. So I just wanted to show, see if it's up here. This is actually the first project that Bob and I worked with. It was a book on Pinot Noir. And we came up with the idea just before the movie Sideways came out. And
he loves Pinot. Remember, he does this whole big thing about the beauty of the Pinot grape and how delicate it is. And so you kind of capitalize on that, it sounds like.
Well, we had the idea actually before the movie came out.
Yeah.
So the fact that the movie did popularize it helped us get a publisher and helped get exposure. But that book was initially a self-generated project. It was
Can we see some of it? Can you show us some of it while we're... So you guys worked on it together.
Yeah, it was both of our ideas.
A collaborative project. Okay.
Yeah, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, let's see inside. I love that. I know that image, and that we can't really see, but what he's decanting there is bright red, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, against the silhouette.
See, this is a spread.
Oh yeah, look at that, right behind us.
Receiving hand.
Yeah.
But it's very satisfying. A lot of, Andrea specializes to some extent on aerial photography.
Right.
Traditionally with helicopters, but increasingly with drones. We have 4 drones between us. But let's see the kind of imagery.
Oh yeah. So those were shot with a drone?
No, these were pre-drone.
So we shot most of this in 2004, 5, and 6.
Okay.
So we had the vision to create this. And there's
a whole series of portraits.
Oh yeah.
And half of those people, well, not half of them, a quarter of them are no longer alive. This is
amazing. And that's only like 10 years ago, 14 years ago?
15 years ago, I shot
15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the idea behind that project, by it being self-generated with opportunity for us to help find a writer, a designer, speak to people in the wine industry, is that we could really tell the story the way that we felt was authentic. And by coming up with that whole package and concept, it was my first book. It was Bob's 50th something. It was more difficult than we'd anticipated to put it together, but it gave us a lot of opportunities to have creative control. And we continued to supplement that work with a lot of editorial publications. We've worked with the wineries directly to help build their image libraries. And we did, a variety of even fine art prints from it. So from there, we've expanded to doing wine worldwide. I've got a my throat, sorry. So going back to the workshops, we were in Italy at this time last year when we combined travel and wine and an amazing culinary experience in a place. So I think that when we're really passionate about either a concept or a project or a place within our workshops, we can share that knowledge. And then it is enjoyable after we've been in a place to be able to have the serendipity to share that with small groups. So in this Burma book, I'm thinking about
one thing that has come out of the workshops is that we've been doing these books that we've. Can you see it? That's on the screen.
The back's cute.
And these books are these self-published? Is that a self-published book, or was that published?
No.
Oh wow! Look at that. Yes. I know that.
And we took 10 photographers to Myanmar, and we asked each photographer to submit, I think, 10 photographs that we edited down. And, it was a remarkable selection of photographs. We're just full for joy. And, just the best photographs that we'd taken over the 2 weeks we spent in Myanmar.
And these are all your students who are submitting these. Fantastic.
Well, it's our class, so Bob and I both have 10, and each of the participants have 10.
Andrea got the cover.
Okay.
Nice.
Well, we have.
And we were both in the same place at the same time. but she muscled away into the best position. So my shot, which was a far better shot really, but
I think the women actually reacted to me better than you, Bob, but
Yes,
you see,
Bob.
and then we have photographs of all the participants in the back.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you produce these, and then everybody gets copies of them and gets them to their friends and
yeah.
family. See,
Yeah,
that's really satisfying. I think one of the most satisfying things as a photographer is to see your work in print.
yeah, there's the
Right.
group.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
There's our group.
Yeah, I recognize the guy in the front row there.
Oh, this one.
No, the one next to him. Yeah, the guy that looks like Sean Connery.
But I think one of the coolest memories from this project is we always leave our workshops open to serendipity because it's how we really work in the field. So we have an ideal schedule, but we happened to cross a small little market and there was a monk ceremony going on. And they were initiating people. There was a huge parade coming down the street. And because we were such a small group, we were able just to scrap the rest of the plans for the day. The village invited us to join in, and we were able to photograph the entire process. We were the only foreigners there in that group.
Fantastic.
So that was incredible to be able to join them for lunch, to be part of the ceremony, to walk down with the parade.
Yeah, we limit the groups to 8 people. It says 10 photographers. That's because there are 10 with me and Andrea.
I see.
But there are only 8 photographers because that gives us flexibility. We're able to move quickly. If we have to change plans, we usually find hotel space at the last minute.
Yeah.
We did that in Vietnam last year, the year before. We're in the far north of Vietnam, very close to the Chinese border.
Here it is.
And we, oh yeah, that's the Vietnam.
Well, to tell the story of Same, and they may actually see this online on Facebook. This was incredible. Do you want to tell the story? You want me? So 10 years ago, we were in Vietnam with this woman walking the path.
Okay.
And
Again, with a workshop group. This is our first group, our first workshop to Vietnam.
And we just happened to stumble upon her exactly 10 years later. And remarkably, she looked almost the same. Here's actually a photo. There we go.
Amazing.
So you can see me holding up on my iPhone the photo that I took of her 10 years before.
I see.
And
We're just literally just walking down the street. And I saw this woman and I immediately recognized her because we'd spent some time with her taking portraits of her.
And this is the
10 years
one from 10 years ago that I'm pointing at right here.
Yes.
And then here she is 10 years later.
Yeah,
She really hasn't aged much. I mean, that's phenomenal.
Here's my friend.
Yeah.
Backward.
That one today.
But you just recognized her walking on the street, and you knew her from the 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And then they invited us for this amazing lunch.
And the incredible thing is, her daughter-in-law, none of them speak, well, her daughter-in-law speaks English, none of them read and write English, but they all have cell phones now. 10 years ago, of course, they didn't have anything.
Right.
Now they've all got cell phones. And we get calls and FaceTime chats from her daughter-in-law, from this remote village way up north in Vietnam, very close to the border with China. And it's just
You're
unbelievable.
FaceTiming. That's remarkable
Yeah.
that they can do that.
So here's
from here, literally from here, she calls us on her phone.
Unbelievable. They have that kind of infrastructure in this remote village.
the next day. They invited us. Whoops, let's see if I can do this backwards. To this amazing lunch they cooked for us, and then you could see all of us in the background shooting it before we ate it, which is pretty funny to see us in that environment.
Yeah.
The only way you can do this is with a small group. If we were taking 15 photographers, it could never happen. But with 8, it makes it very, very doable and makes it much more flexible.
And
I
then
love that you're making books out of these workshops. And as long as I've known you, I didn't know that you were doing this. That's phenomenal.
And obviously, we like them as much as all the participants.
Yeah.
And
What a great idea, you guys.
Sorry. So I'm just seeing something on the screen. Oh, beautiful style of living.
But anyway,
that's fantastic.
We made this book and we actually shipped it to them in Vietnam afterwards. So this is like our gift to the family. And by having a small group versus just one or two of us, it actually made the experience much richer. So there are times that it is wonderful to be able to share it with the right group of people.
And just so people can find out about maybe joining you on your next one, what's the link that they should go to?
It's on both of our websites.
Okay.
But our business name is Lumaria Workshops. Lumaria.
Jared will pop that up there.
We wanted to get the domain name, the .com domain name. So it's lumariaworkshops.com. But you can find us through Robert Holmes Photography.
Either one. Okay, we'll put the links on here. Well, let me hit you guys with a couple of these questions that have come up here. So, do Bob and Andrea provide editorial feedback on each other's work? What are the pros and cons of this type of feedback? First of all, do you do that? And if you do,
of course we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's inevitable. I'm always very cautious about giving feedback to anyone.
Yes.
Because I'm a photographer, and the important thing. Oh, who is Jose?
Jose is with us.
Hey, Jose.
Yeah, you should do this, Jose. Do it for Porto. Jose runs the best travel workshops in Porto, in Portugal.
And I think he creates his own books and projects as well.
Yeah. Anyway, the problem I have with critiquing in general is that we have to satisfy ourselves as photographers, and it's a moving target. When we start and get a little bit better, become a little bit better photographer, we can be delighted with what we've shot. And then another 2 years down the line, you've improved even more, and you look back on the previous and it wasn't as good as I thought it was then. And the longer you're in the business, the harder it is to satisfy yourself.
Yeah.
So someone who's old and decrepit like me now has a hell of a time being satisfied with what they shoot, because I've been doing it for so long. And it becomes increasingly difficult. But ultimately, it's ourselves that we have to satisfy, or a client.
But don't you think,
and I'm never a client.
Yeah.
So I'm not the person to comment. A person to criticize would be an editor or an art director, or even a vintner, a winery. They're the client.
Yeah.
But don't you think, like these books we do from each of the workshops, or when we deliver our client thing, by looking at our photographs and narrowing it down to a project, don't you think that we're doing more editing than if it was just alone? Because we're seeing which one of us has the strongest scenarios of each.
But we all know what we like. I sent a copy. I did a little book called The Darkness of, what is it? Darkness of Light. Oh,
want me to go get it? You stay.
Go get it. Yeah, the Darkness of Light, I think I called it.
I seem to recall this.
Sent a copy to a friend in England. Oh, The Darker Side of Light, of course. Yeah,
the Darker Side of Light. Okay.
Yeah. And the person I sent it to was a former Magnum photographer. I used to work for him back in England. He was the picture editor for a number of Sunday supplement magazines. The Sunday Times magazine and some others, which are like the New York Times magazine, the Sunday magazine. And he was one of the top picture editors in the country. He had his own BBC series on photography. He's now in his 80s, but he was looking through the book and, he saw this photograph of mine.
I love that one.
And it really disturbed him because he couldn't understand what was happening. He couldn't understand that's a little boy.
You're at the Wailing Wall, right?
Yeah, it's the Western Wall in Israel.
Yeah.
In Jerusalem. But that little boy that you can see in the middle, he thought it was a woman to start with.
The little boy right by the
Yeah,
shoulder.
with the
Yeah,
ringlets.
yeah.
And that's, people now think that's photoshopped in. It's really difficult to see this in real time on the screen.
I know.
Everything's
I know.
Everything's back. So yeah,
We'll put this photograph on our show notes so you can see it. It deserves. We'll put it up for you guys so you can see it.
yeah. To me, that's one of my favorite photographs, and to some extent, the reason it is because I know the effort that went into getting it. I knew the image I wanted. I wanted the back of all the Siddiq's heads with the hats.
Yeah.
I wanted against the western wall in the background as the backdrop. And I didn't want to show any faces. I just wanted a strong graphic of all the hats. But as I always say, it needed punctuation. And I was shooting there all pretty well half a day, looking for shots. But that was the shot that I had in my mind. That was my pre-visualized shot.
Right.
And then suddenly the crowd opened up and there's this angelic little boy with golden ringlets coming down. Your classic little Hasidic boy in profile among all this sea of black. And I was shooting on Kodachrome, so there's no way it could have been faked.
It's not Photoshop if it's Kodachrome, folks.
Yeah, it's Kodachrome. I still have the Kodachrome original. And it was just, I didn't even know I'd got it. I was sort of shooting. I never shoot blindly. I knew what I was after, and I was hoping I got something.
Yeah.
But because it's film, I didn't know. I just hoped I'd captured it, and fortunately I had. And it was used in the book, inevitably. But this friend of mine in England just couldn't get his head around it. He said it disturbed him.
And what was it that bothered him? Just because he didn't understand it?
He couldn't understand the image. Yeah.
Okay.
You didn't write the backstory in here, though. Like your next project you do, you'll probably talk about it. There's only a caption.
No, there is the backstory in the back.
In the caption.
And I know, Bob, let's talk about you know.
The funny thing is I had this friend in the book as being one of my sources of inspiration.
Well,
but
maybe not so much.
I'll have to take reference out.
Take that back now. But we've talked about how you love to have your photographs on the edge of darkness and have that mystery, sort of what's going on in the edges, which is why you titled it that way.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah. And that's an interesting thing, because I think a lot of us maybe ignore the fact that that's the whole dimension of photography that you can explore, which is into the dark edges, like you have silhouettes. Amazing.
This side, this photograph, where it's just the teapot is illuminated.
Oh yeah, and there's your punctuation point.
A little cafe in Khalil Khalili in Cairo. I just love that kind of imagery. They're images that leave you asking questions.
Right.
They don't give you all the answers immediately.
Right. Excellent.
There's always an element of mystery there. It makes you want to know something more about what's going on. It's photographs like that, in my opinion, that have life. The ultimate photographer who does it consistently, time and time again, is Alex Webb. Alex is a magnum photographer, and his work is so complex. And you can look at Alex's photographs for years and never fully understand them completely.
I think maybe this was really amazing for me, having seen a lot of these Buddhist scenarios beforehand.
Yes.
I think Bhutan and both of them. So you shot that what year? When it first opened up, really?
Mid-80s, mid-1980s.
And then we had a chance to go back with a small group in 2015, and we encountered many of those same scenarios, but each of us had a chance, to see Bob's vision and then our own renditions of it, which was cool.
Actually, it's a good point. The interesting thing about the workshops is that there are 10 of us all shooting the same thing inevitably, and everybody gets different photographs. There's a few very similar, but generally, there's a very different set of photographs comes from each photographer. which is great.
Which is great. And it's their own signature on the photograph.
Yeah.
'Cause,
So, our role is to find the situations that are going to provide interesting opportunities and make sure that if anything is happening, and we just show how we work, how I have always worked in the field, shooting a magazine assignment,
right.
how I go about it, how I discover things that are worth shooting, and hopefully people get something from that. But basically, it's getting them into a position where there will be photographic opportunities, and then it's up to them to interpret that in their own way. And that always happens.
Yeah. Well, listen, you guys, I know you have a busy day and a busy schedule, so I want to thank you for your generosity again. Is there any final point you'd like to leave viewers with to, improve their photography? Get out and shoot. Right?
Don't get rusty when we're at home.
Don't get rusty. Start shooting. Keep shooting.
Well, the interesting thing I'm doing is going through archives.
Yeah.
Which we rarely have time to do, and the great thing about digital photography, if you have files that you shot 15 years ago, the software for interpreting those files, assuming you're shooting raw, and it's a good reason to shoot raw files,
yes,
you can interpret them now in totally different ways with the new Lightroom or Photoshop software, whatever.
It's so true.
It's really exciting. You pull things out of photographs that you never realized were there. And I remember years ago, Rick Smolan. Rick was one of the founders of the Day in the Life books. Rick told me that he kept all his old Kodachrome slides. Rick shot a lot for National Geographic, and he did a book called Alice to Ocean, which was one of the revolutionary books of the time. I think it's the first book that was bundled with a DVD. And Alice to Ocean, he had all the originals from that. And he told me he kept all those old Kodachrome slides because he's convinced that one day there'd be technology that would allow him to rescue things out of those images that were not usable at the time he shot them. And of course, it became true.
It's very true.
Yeah.
And I think from my perspective, right now we're all having a chance to pause and slow down. And reviewing our work, we can think and see what we're most passionate about. And I believe our workshops will be somewhat the same and somewhat different in the future. The examples we brought up in Vietnam, where we ran into the family, the monk initiation in Burma, most of those opportunities are when we stayed in a place. We allowed serendipity to come together. And, even Italy at this time last year, we had one home base. So I think we can fine tune what we're passionate about during the time off. And when we get back out there, think about how we really want to bring that to life in a more balanced way.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again. I loved hearing the stories about the books, something new for me. I think that's a great way to conduct workshops. Make sure, you guys check out their work, and we'll give you the links. So take care, you guys. Have a good day. Make it back to California safely. And
Thanks.
We'll check in with you again real soon. Wow, wasn't that cool, you guys? Hey, look, inside look once again into what it's like, what you do. What do you do out there, and how are they, planning to move into this new era that we're going forward in. But I love the idea of creating these books as part of the workshop. So again, remember, we're being sponsored by Bay Photo. They can provide these books for you, prints, cards. They're awesome. They have great customer service. Check them out. The link is in there for your 25% discount. If you guys haven't already joined the AYP Club Facebook page, you should go there, because after we do these live streams, you can go hang out with people. You can share comments. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of activity in there. And who knows, we might even get some guests like Bob dropping by and chatting with you guys within that group. Here we are. We're moving forward into this new realm of what life, who knows what it's like. But remember, you got to do the things that we've been talking about. Get outside if you can, take walks, get your camera out if you can, take photographs. If you can't, then as Bob said, look through your archives, work on your stuff, your images. Will you guys make sure you share this video? Share the idea of the AYP Club with your friends. Tell them about it. We're doing something that's really unique, bringing you guys close to all these amazing photographers. This is the real deal here, okay? Share the video. Make sure you've subscribed if you haven't already. Leave your comments. This video will go back up tomorrow on YouTube. And remember to get out and capture your own images of life.